Hello, students, and welcome to yet another in a series of video lectures. Today, we're going to spend some time talking about the importance of understanding group dynamics. As you may now understand from your first night in class and recognize the task ahead of you, as you will be required to propose, write, and develop a group series and actually facilitate in the actual community, that it's important for you to understand some of the things that we're talking about today in terms of understanding the group dynamics. So we're going to spend some time actually exploring in this particular lecture um, that particular set of circumstances that you will encounter as you work with your groups. Again, this is coming out of chapter 3, so as always, we encourage you to continue to do your readings and to read strategically as you move forward. So when we think about group dynamics, let's think about these particular 4 items. And we're going to spend some time talking about these items as we move through the PowerPoint presentation. So when we think about communication, when we look at communication and what it actually means in the process of our group process, you'll find that it's a very dynamic process that you as the facilitators of the group will need to pay very close attention to. Written here are the most probable forms of communication that actually happen when you're in an actual group setting, and to recognize that whenever there are folks gathered together face to face, that communication is always occurring. So even in silence, often things are communicated. All communication really is intended to convey a message, and sometimes there are intended messages as well as unintended messages. Other things to recognize about the group setting and some things that happen as it relates to communication is recognize that people in the group are looking for understanding. They're finding out where they stand in relation to other people. They spend time communicating in terms of persuading others, gaining and maintaining power, defending themselves, provoking a reaction from others, making impressions on others, and gaining and maintaining relationships and present a unified image sometimes in a group. Also, communication is essential for cooperation, connection, autonomy, similarity, flexibility, and harmony. So making sure that you as the leader of the group are always paying attention to what's happening in communication and looking across all of these particular veins from the nonverbal, verbal, written, and as well as the importance of silence when you're understanding those particular dynamics around group. Also recognize that the interactional patterns that you will actually have in terms of when you're actually running your groups. And so as the leader of the group, you have to make some decisions about the type of group that you're running and what might be the most effective way for the group members to interact. So you got your maypole, your round robin, the hot seat, and all of these are different configurations of communication methods that you can utilize in terms of working with the group that you're trying to work with and what works best for them. So reading more about these and recognizing that you in the facilitator's role will have to make the determination about which particular interactional method will work best for the group that you're trying to respond to. I jumped way ahead there, huh? All right, so cohesion is another aspect of the group dynamic process that you also have to pay very close attention to throughout. And so as I think about cohesion, I think about connectedness, or how people join with each other, and recognize also that cohesion is going to be necessary for affiliation, recognition, and security. And that it's going to also help in terms of the socialization process for the members that are a part of that particular group, as well as it opens up the ability to be willing to listen to one another, as well as to be able to feel safe and secure in expressing negative as well as positive feelings. So when you think about cohesion, think about it like, what's the glue that holds it all together? And recognizing that it's fairly important that this member to member liking the group, understanding what the purpose is, and moving towards that goal are all going to be very important things in cohesion. Whether the group as a group actually meets the goals that is set for itself, as well as the individuals in the group. And so the whole teamwork aspect is something that you have to pay attention to. So as a leader, you have to nurture the cohesion of your group and ensure that it is actually occurring, or the group as well as individuals may not actually reach the goals that have been set. When we're thinking about social integration and influence also, so it's about taking a deeper look inside of the group to actually determine these particular things. And so it's very important as you move into your process of developing your group is that you understand the importance of norms and looking at norms as guidelines to providing acceptable and appropriate behavior for the members of your group. It increases the predictability and the stability and the securities for all of the members in the group. So it's like we have some rules, we have some structure, we know where it is we're going as a group, and we know how it is we're moving towards getting there. So having those norms in place early on in the beginning of the group will save you lots of trouble down the road where people don't understand what the actual context of the group is, or what we're trying to do, or how you're going to go about doing it. So those are very important things to pay attention to. Roles, we talk about those shared expectations about the functions of individuals in the group. So are you going to have roles and rules about who's talking, how do you talk, in what manner do you speak to each other? Those kind of things are necessary to make sure that members know how to conduct themselves in certain situations. And to make sure that the leaders are making sure that the group continues to be a safe place, that people operate within the confines of their roles, is a very important part of this particular process. The status, also recognizing that when you've got a group of people, these dynamics are always kind of at play in terms of members of the group evaluating and ranking themselves in relation to each other. If, for example, you've got subject matter of anger management, and you've got a person in your group who has some expertise on doing anger management, then there's a tendency for that person to actually maybe share some of that information, provide some insight, and an attempt to actually change their status or how they're looked at or viewed in the group. So it's about recognizing those particular aspects and those things as they occur, that will actually help you understand the dynamics of the group and what it is you should be doing as the facilitator. The group culture. We have spent some time in PS classes talking about culture, and so I think there's a basic understanding of the importance of recognizing the role of culture, especially when we're doing groups. And so we've got your groups will be either homogeneous or they'll be diverse, and homogeneous, of course, means same or like or similar. Where diverse means that there's often a larger variety. So when I think about a diverse group setting, I think about the class, this particular cohort 8, 30 some odd students, and they're coming from different language backgrounds, different parts of the world, different parts of the state. So there is some diversity in terms of that. But also recognizing that how you develop that group and looking at those dynamics is going to be different from a homogeneous group to a diverse group. So really making some time to pay attention to who's in the group and making sure that you have addressed those issues around culture and recognize that becomes an important influence in terms of how people connect and benefit from being actually a part of the group process. The other things that also affect group culture is the environment. Where are you actually doing your group? A group that you will do in class, as you will see, will be very different from a group that you will be doing in a community agency. And so the culture can have an impact in terms of where it is you actually are. So there's a different dynamic when you're doing a group, say in a social service nonprofit agency at a community center, as opposed to maybe running a group that is facilitated in a state-owned facility. So again, recognizing the importance of culture and making sure that you make the adjustments to make sure that you have paid attention to those things as well. Factors that change communication patterns are also things that you need to be very aware of in terms of the work that you're doing in the group setting. And so, cues and reinforcers, emotional bonds, um, subgroups are all things that we need to pay some attention to as you are moving forward with your group. And so let's talk about cues and reinforcers for a moment. So, as the leader, you are responsible for making sure that the safe environment is there, that the purpose is maintained, and that communication flows. And so let's say you have a member of a group who is dominating the group process and talking more so and not giving others an opportunity to then share. So a cue or a reinforcer might be saying, your thoughts are important, but other members need time to share their thoughts as well. So if it's okay with you, I like to find someone else to see what they have to say about the subject. So again, as the leader of the group, the co-facilitators, you have to pay attention to those kinds of things as well as you're moving forward to make sure that all voices are able to enter into the room. Um, Recognizing emotional bonds, that there will be bonds that will be positive and negative. There will be group members who will connect with each other. There will be group members who don't connect with each other. And recognizing the more negative bonds you have, the less solidarity you'll have in terms of the group uh, becoming cohesive and getting the work done that it needs to do. So you'll have to pay attention to those bonds and explore what those pieces are about in your role as a leader. Recognizing also that subgroups are a dynamic that will occur as you are in the group processes. So people will click or resonate or connect or disconnect around certain issues. And so you may have a positive subgroup or a negative subgroup, and the actual issue gets buried within the context of the group. So again, recognizing that these alliances naturally occur. Sometimes it'll be two people, sometimes it'll be three, but also that it can increase the likelihood that a member of the group could be scapegoated or become the target of the intervention as opposed to the group actually doing its work. So again, paying attention to subgroup development as well as how you manage those things are going to be your roles as the facilitators. Physical size and arrangement. So how many people are in your group? A group of 25 people as opposed to a group of 8 people will be very different in terms of what you're able to cover, how you're able to communicate. And so group size is important. Recognizing the topic that you have, the time it's going to take to get through the material, the need for everybody to participate. You may want to regulate the size of your group to make sure that you can adequately make sure all of those goals are met. Also, how you sit, sitting in a circle is the preferred method for us in terms of our group piece. And then also recognizing power and status. And so thinking again about the individual members of the group and what they bring to the actual table. So the relative power and status that folks have in a group based on their position or prestige in the community, their physical attributes, uh, those kind of things. Or if you're at an agency, their role at the agency, all of those things play a dynamic and have the capacity to actually change how communication actually flows in the context of the group. So finally, also recognizing from an earlier video lecture that there are 6 developmental stages of group, and so looking at group development from the beginning. So how are you going to set out in terms of the work that you do with the folks that are part of your group is going to be very important. So when we talk about roles and when we talk about planning and when we talk about what the norms of the group are going to be, those are beginning dynamics that you'll need to have to pay a lot of attention to. Recognizing that as the group has processed, you'll be moving into the middle phase, which is the storming and norming. So a lot of issues around cohesion, how folks are kind of connecting with each other or disconnecting with each other, whether the purpose still remains important. And then how's the group performing? Are you actually meeting the needs or are you not? And then finally, really looking at the ending piece of group. So if we've wrapped up our series, as we're coming to an end, how do we start to look at making a decision about when to end and how we're going to actually then separate are going to be very important dynamics that you will need to pay close attention to as you are working in your group setting. So again, I thank you for your time. I would encourage you to read strategically this particular information and come class prepared to do a review and to move into the group setting. Thank you.